Clear called Atomic Habits. Have any of you read it?
I have not.
Okay, I had a mother of one of the U18 teams give it to me, and I'm adding it to my top 5 list right now because it's all about, in hockey we talk about good habits and bad habits, and just off the top of your head, guys, with the teams you've coached at the various levels you've coached at, what are some habits that players need to change, correct?
For me, two things
Bad
actually jump into my head immediately are self-awareness and accountability.
So can you be specific about like the idea of a bad habit of just simplicity, the stick off the ice, not ready for a pass is a habit.
Sure.
So they're not a solution lies in self-awareness.
Accountability in general, I think, is a way I would explain that, how that would be something to work on. As a skill, I think it's a skill as much as anything else. It's a mental skill for sure. But I think that is when something happens, again, ties into the self-awareness, assessing what happened. And so did I not get the pass because it was in my feet? Did I not get the pass because my stick wasn't down? Was the goal scored because I back checked to the wrong side of the player? So it's a mental thing. So it's not as fine tuned as you're saying as sticks should be on the ice, which that is one of them for sure. In the defensive zone, they skate around like they got a flag on the end of their sticks most of the time, and they're waving the flag as opposed to just having it on the ice. But to me, at any level, especially the older levels, being accountable for what you're doing, I think that's a skill too. Mental skill, but still a skill.
Yeah. See, you're too far advanced for the level I'm working at. I'm talking U13 and U15 girls, because
Okay.
these are habits that they're in the middle of developing, and you want to develop good ones versus bad. So it's not about accountability. It's about how do you deal with changing it, and how do you make them aware, and how do you make them accountable to the point where they begin to keep their sticks on the ice, not turn their back on the puck. Those are two simple things.
Yeah, well, I think the easiest way to show them, I don't know if you do much of that, but I got to guess in today's world, every parent is voraciously filming their child's shift with their phone. But the easiest way is just show them, right? I mean, you can talk about it all you want and say, I don't think you're keeping your stick down in the defensive zone. Well, I think I am. Well, here's a video. Here's a picture of you with your stick up in the air, so we can see you need to work on this. Here you reached for the puck instead of moved your feet. Here you are. That's you, right? You're number 4, unless somebody stole your jersey. That's you. So, right? That's you. So that way, I think that's, to me, because everything they learn, everything is so visual with that generation now. This is what they're growing up with. That being able to show them it, it's good because it's a great teaching tool, and there's no discussion when I show you a picture of, yeah, that's you.
So if either of you ever had a parent specifically look for that and try to point it out to their child?
I think parents take it and they show the kids, and depending upon how you approach it, as you well know, especially with young teenagers and young ladies and boys of that age, that it's really easy for them to just tune you out depending upon how you approach them with it. More like showing them the video and saying, hey, let's look at your shift. What did you see?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm in the middle of dealing with a couple simple habits at a young age, and the stick length, the stick on the ice one, and turning your back on the puck are sort of the fixation right now because I see it too often, and I see it too often with turning the back, especially with the most talented players. And it's one thing to know it, but it's another thing to appreciate how important it is to becoming an elite performer at a more competitive level. You know, the step of holding them accountable is sort of them becoming aware of it and being accountable on their own volition for that. In this book, Atomic Habits by James Cleary, he doesn't refer to habits as good or bad. They're habits. It's something you can't stop doing. And you may need to change if you want to improve moving forward. So I like that thinking, and that turning your back isn't bad. It's just a habit. It's something that you can do differently and avoid, but how do you accomplish that? So I have a drill, Hal. You might try it at your practice, and it's a simple cross-ice scrimmage, and it's easiest done with stick on the ice rule. They just scrimmage, cross ice, 3-on-3. As they do, as you notice the stick being off the ice, you blow the whistle. And everybody does a push-up, but the offender does 3. And when I've done this before, I've had to tell the coaches on the ice, don't tell the person who did it 3 push-ups. Wait to see if they're aware that they were the one who turned their back or who had their stick off the ice. And the challenge I had with the coaches was avoiding them interrupting and pointing the finger to them, you were wrong, you were wrong. It didn't allow the player to think about themselves and whether they were the ones needing the attention. So I just do this two rules, and I don't do them in the same practice. One would be a cross-ice scrimmage with a stick on the ice rule, and the next one would be a turn your back on the puck rule, or overskate or overplay the puck, which is most evident in D-zone cover at the U15 level, where they can skate pretty fast. They overskate. They don't know how to contain skating in terms of controlling their speed, so they lose the side. So those sub skills have to be practiced to control your skating defensively more than they're learning the tools of how to contain. But the habit of doing that, the habit in a game, is making them aware of it. And the push-up rule game, to me, his work for me, in my mind, it's a pretty simple way of dealing with it in a drill, in a game, and maybe doing that and making sure they understand why is it important and telling you why is it important. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, right? I mean, I think you have to, depend on who you have as a team and, you know, what their abilities are, right? You got to find those ways to make them aware. And that's what you're doing, right? I mean, one thing that I used to do too with some drills, again, we're trying to keep your stick on the ice, was I would have one team, similar to what you're doing, 3-on-3. I'd have one team stick, offensive team would have the puck stick on the ice, defensive team would have to turn their sticks over. And it was interesting that when they had to turn their sticks over, they actually relied so much more on that stick, and it was on the ice so much more because that's all they had was the end of that stick to try to poke the puck, steer, and turn. So it was interesting to me, at least the groups I worked with, they really seemed to be better at keeping their stick on the ice when it was actually turned over. And they were using it, like I say, to poke, check, and redirect. So that part was interesting to me.
Well, I've found that when Tom Malloy and myself over the years, we have defensemen turn their sticks over playing rushes. And when you turn the stick over in a D zone drill, 1-on-1, they have to position better.
Right.
And it's not about the stick being on the ice. I think in my situation, they have to control their skating. They have to stride, not cross over. And if they rely on the stick, they're reaching with the stick and they're not maintaining a gap. So there's the tactical benefit there is even playing rushes with no sticks, learning to stride, use your arms properly, keep the defender on the outside with your alignment, being able to pivot and skate them off or surf and skate them off on a rush.
I've done that. The defensemen really love that one.
Yeah, it's a good one. And we did it years ago with the national men's team where they had to skate with their hands behind their back, which really made them stride only, and then their hands free, which allowed them to get that north-south rhythm. Forward skating is more of a north-south, east-west rhythm, lateral movement, but in backward striding, it's a different physical movement. So
Well,
there's so much teaching detail.
Or Hal, did you ever see the video? This goes back a few years ago when Denver, I think when they won the national title and they were at one of their practices, as they were out into the playoffs and their sticks didn't show up and they did an entire practice without their sticks, but they simulated everything.
Yeah.
So they actually did the drill simulating making a pass. Another player simulated catching a pass. The D would, go back and play the 2-on-1, and sometimes, and they were clever about it. Sometimes the D would play it as if the puck got through. Sometimes they would play it as if they broke it up. The goaltender was tracking the players. It was pretty interesting. I think they did it for I don't think the whole practice, but a fair portion of it. It was pretty fun to watch. Just you talk about knowing the game and being in your body in the right position, and that was pretty fun to watch.
I've heard that one before, and it's awareness. It's a different approach to think about what you're doing and how you're doing it, and it gets the mind, it gets the wheels turning, thinking about those things. So,
and they were all invested, so that was nice.
Yeah. Now listen, Boston University, they call it BU Mondays. That they dedicate their Monday morning practices to defensive tactical skating and tactical play. I've got a number of links on my site about it, but boy, they're teaching transition skating and striding and gap control over and over again in a real deliberate fashion. So those are just things to think about. And hell, if you could try that rule, cross-ice scrimmage rules, I'm trying to get coaches to, number one, teach good habits, which means you're breaking old ones. Yep. And there's that. And I'm glad Kim has joined. Hi, Kim.
Hey, Wally, can you hear me okay?
I sure can. Kim, I began by talking about the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. Have you read it?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Well, we're on the same page here, and I'm in the middle of trying to get minor hockey girls to keep their sticks on the ice at the elite U13 and 15 levels and not turn their back on the puck, but to always face the puck and have that habit ingrained somehow. And we've been talking about, I'll get Hal to mention again his thinking. And Hal, you go ahead on the accountability piece, which is sort of the elite level. You're trying to hold them accountable to it. Could you talk about that, Peter?
Sure. I think that's a skill. I think as I said, I think it's a mental skill that ties into what you're talking about. And again, we talked about how I think the easiest way to teach that is with video, to show them what they are and are not doing. Because very often in the heat of a play, the quickness of things, sometimes they don't realize what they are or are not doing. And showing them the video, obviously that's you, like we talked about, that's who you are, right? That's you, your number, whatever it is. And you're there, and potentially maybe you're not the one with your stick. Maybe you're not on a 2-on-1. Maybe you're not trying to deny the pass. So being accountable for, yeah, that's something that I need to work on, not to lay blame in any way, because it's, it's a game of mistakes, really, right? In so many ways that it just makes everyone better by getting that atmosphere where if everyone's accountable too, you can really have, again, at the higher levels, you can really have some great video sessions where if you got a really good setup with your team culture, people can begin to, if you will, critique each other a little bit, and they can buy into that. And I've had players say, that was me, I should have picked this guy up. And then all of a sudden, the teammate will chip in right away and just say, no, you know what? If you watch, I should have back checked to the inside and picked that guy up. Like, you might have had that issue going on, but I could have helped you. So I think it does breed the accountability with the video of what they do, and then a good culture and speaking about it and being open, if you can develop that.
Kim, have you ever used video to that level?
Oh, definitely. Well, I was going to share a little anecdote because I missed one of our U9 rep games recently that my daughter's on the team. And so I watched her shifts at night. I should have watched the whole game, but I didn't have time. And I watched her shifts, and she always has two hands on her stick, and the stick's always in the air. Now, she chases the puck down really well. She has the puck quite a bit. She plays D. But in her races, she's always got two hands. And I guess I hadn't noticed it before, or maybe I wasn't as aware of it. But in that game, it was almost every single time. And so I mentioned it to her casually, as a coach can only do, right? A parent coach. There's nothing casual about it, right? In passing, hey, Sasha, like, you should probably have your stick on the ice. And, I'm noticing in the video. And she's like, I don't do that. I have one hand on the stick. And I'm like, well, just watch the video and pretty sure you had two hands on your stick. She's like, no, when I want to go fast, I have one. And then her 5-year-old sister starts chiming in. Even I know you should only have one hand on your stick. So I created a whole saga between the 5-year-old and the 7-year-old. But, I thought to myself, she just needs to see it, right? She's telling me she doesn't do that. She's telling me yesterday in practice, I'm saying, you got to face the puck. Like, you're getting turnstiled, turning around when you're defending because you don't know where the puck is. She's like, I don't do that. Well, you just did. Now, maybe that's just a parent coach. She's never going to listen piece of it. But I definitely have used it to point out habits. I think it's critical because players sometimes just aren't aware of things like that. There's a difference between, maybe, why did you pick that shot, or why did you make that pass, or why didn't you make that pass? But if it's just, habits like how we're holding our stick, or turning the right way, or, scanning the ice, I think that's really easy to pick up. And it's not right or wrong. I think that's always a challenge with the girls. And I'm constantly on them it's about making a decision, and your choices are your choices. They're not the right choice or the wrong choice. They're just the choice you made in that moment. But, holding your stick properly and always facing the puck aren't really choices. They're just sort of categorically correct things to do. So I think those are easy targets to hit when doing video with players, because they're just always kind of the right thing, versus video with players that can be a little bit more challenging when it's when you're challenging their decision making in that moment. I think that habit videos are a lot easier way to introduce video and make people feel comfortable.
Kim, what about, and all of you, when you're showing video of mistakes or bad habits, there's sort of that negativity of pointing that kind of thing out. And some players are extremely sensitive to it. What's the fine line between being able to look at negative clips for your own team and players and not and being able to still motivate them to correct that habit?
For me, Wally, it was, I never really called anyone out individually because there's never a reason to do that on video because they're looking at that. So I would approach it, and let's say there was a play like 2-on-1 and our defenseman does not deny the puck. Right? I wouldn't approach it that way saying, look, we didn't deny the puck here. I would look at it and I would say, what should we have done here that would have been more effective, and how could we have done it? Because now they're thinking about it, and you've taken the emphasis off, hey, look, number whatever, look what you just did. You know, we're talking about it as a group, and they're much more willing to accept it. And typically what I found with that was that individual that made the mistake will be the first one to step up and say, yeah, you know what I should have done? I should have had my stick better in that passing lane, and I should not have cheated over or something like that. So that, to me, that was the approach that I used to work that seemed pretty effective.
So go ahead, Roy.
One of the things that I've dreamed about is, you know, the use of video and the timing of it, and how do you do it when you're coaching minor hockey, like elite hockey. Even if I was coaching a university team, I might send out a clip, and I've thought of doing this, and I'm trying to encourage coaches to think about it. Send out a positive clip of what your team did of a shift. Probably 15 seconds from prior to the goal being scored, and have the players write down everything they liked about that. It's their own team doing good things. And then sending it back to you. So you know they look at video. It's one assignment, one clip, a feel-good clip. The second task is the other team obviously made some mistakes. What were they? And then have them look at the other team's mistakes. And becoming aware of that, mention that we all make the same mistakes. But right now, we're learning from the other team's mistakes, and we want to reduce our errors. That's sort of a, maybe I'm being too gentle as a coach and afraid of pointing things out, but I don't know what to think about that. Go ahead, Kim.
Yeah, when I was over coaching Team Iceland at Worlds, I didn't have a lot of time to do a ton of video. You know, I would have been editing it on my own. There wasn't, you know, you sort of had to go into the YouTube stream and dig it all out. I didn't have a dedicated video person. So I did that for one of the sessions. I just sent like 5 minutes of us playing great hockey. You know, very, very much our identity, the way I asked them to play. And I sent it to them, you know, as a clip. And they all looked at it and they had to reply back to me and say, you know, what are 3 things you thought we did really well, you know, with the puck in this clip? We were really prioritizing our offensive play because we had a lot of time with the puck in the tournament. And it went out to everybody. This was really interesting because then you get what the goalie thinks and what the fourth line player who's maybe not getting as much ice time thinks, and the kid who's on every other shift. And they all sent it back to me, you know, with just like 3 little points. Some of them are like me and wrote novels. Some of them wrote 10 words. But it was a great way, as you said, Wally, they all had to do it, right? So I know they all watched it, right? You could tell some of them, you know, they're under 18. So some of them obviously cheated on the test a little bit and gave the same answers as somebody else. But for the most part, it was really an efficient way to do it, knowing they all had their phones. We all had internet access. You know, they could all watch it on their own time. They could do it together if they wanted. It made it very safe. And we did it again as we got closer to the, or as we got further in the event, talking about what are some things we did well without the puck. So that could have been offensively or defensively, I guess. And it's just interesting. It's an interesting way to learn a lot more about your players, Because I think as coaches, we have a perception of what their hockey IQ is or how they think the game. And I would say of the 20 responses I got, there are probably 4 where it changed a little bit what I thought of the player based on her response, in terms of what she highlighted or how she communicated it. So it was a really great learning experience for me to get to know a little bit more about them and how they think the game, as opposed to just me telling them, watch this, we want to do this, this was really good. So we didn't have any dedicated video sessions at the tournament. We just didn't have the time, nor did I think it was completely necessary. And there were things where I sent them more highlight clips, the 15 seconds, like you said, before the goal, Wally, and, kind of, hey, what did we do great here, and a celebration. But that picking 5 minutes, I think any coach could do that. I could do that with my daughter's U9 games that somebody throws on YouTube. Hey, let's watch these 5 minutes. And half the team says, what did we do great with the puck? And half the team says, what do we do great without the puck? And, doing it virtually where they're not actually in the same room, I find with the girls is quite safe because everybody has to give a response, and the players who usually take over the room or take over the conversation don't have the opportunity to do that. And if the girls think, oh man, I sucked, or that was stupid, or my hair looks funny, or whatever it is, the comments they want to make in the room, they're not making those globally when they just have to answer back to me. So I find it really valuable that way, Wally, and it's quite manageable. Even when I coach the junior team here, I would send clips like that every week, as opposed to having a dedicated video session. I think everyone's got a computer in their hand these days, so it's pretty easy to do. You're on mute, Wally.
When you mentioned you learn more about your players doing that, that to me is the most obvious thing that we don't realize. They're telling you what they think or know or understand. You as a coach appreciate what they know already. So you know how to coach them moving forward versus constantly telling them what to do. You're not doing this. You've got to do this. It changes the learning process from telling and yelling to asking. And I think it's quite simple, and I think very effective. They feel more engaged, appreciated, and you make their wheels turn when you do that. So for any coaches out there who have got video, and in Calgary, every elite team has the use of Instat. The shifts are broken down. They can look at all of their own shifts. They can look at special teams. They can look at all the goals that were scored, for and against. Now, you don't want them to look at everything, but you might prescribe one thing and ask for that feedback from them. If it's elite hockey, I think that's a reasonable expectation. The best ones will do it on their own. They already look at the videos and they learn from them themselves. So I'm curious how many of the players that you have actually watch hockey, let alone watch their own clips. Anybody? Hal, you're a speaker.
Well, I'm coaching U14 boys. No, they don't watch much hockey at all. We've done a little video work with them. I would like to do more, but I pull it. There's a lot of actually interesting clips that come out on Instagram almost every day of great plays, and they're 15 seconds or 20 seconds long, and I'll copy those and send them out into our group chat. And I'll get to the locker room and I'll say, how many of you guys watched it? And 4 hands go up. But I know the other issue that we have is several of the kids, our best players, he has an iPad and his father has it blocked off for things other than what his father thinks is okay for him to have access to. And so he doesn't get any of the stuff. And then if we've got kids on the group chat or set up with iPhones, but if they don't have an iPhone, it doesn't work. And if they have the I don't know, the Android or whatever. So I think it can be extremely valuable, Wally. It comes down to availability, time. I spend a lot of time watching my players, even in practice. It's funny you brought up, keeping your stick on the ice, because that's exactly what I was talking about last night at practice. And with a number of the kids who's always got their sticks up, up here. But I think about a lot of this stuff for these younger kids. So these are 13-year-olds. I've coached all the way up to 20-year-olds. There's a huge difference in self-awareness. There's a huge difference in their understanding of the game and what's going on. So you have to coach, I think, especially on the boys' side, very differently than at an age. And a 13-year-old boy versus a 13-year-old girl, there's like light years of difference in terms of their maturity and their understanding and their willingness to learn. The boys are pretty wild, and their attention spans are awfully short. But over time, they get better. You have to just keep coming back to emphasizing important things individually and collectively. I wish we all had insets. Insets pretty expensive. These teams, Canadian teams, all pay for that. It's like $6,000 or $7,000, I think, for the season.
Well, Girls Hockey Calgary at the elite level, they've done it. They've got into this Russian program.
Wow.
The coaches are really good at using it.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I think it's a feature that really opens up learning. And I know I've talked to parents who have looked at their kids in stats. So there's conversations I have at the rink, watching practices and games with parents have taken a different level because they're looking at the games and breakdowns of the games themselves and asking real objective questions about it, sharing really valid insights about what they see.
Who's got access to it? Do the parents all have access to?
They do, because of their, the team has access to it. So it's available. The team includes the parents and players and coaching staffs.
I might try that next year if I'm coaching older kids, because I think I can go way back with a kid I had in high school, and he just he played about half speed all the time, and he insisted he was going full speed. And we did manage to pull video and show him shift after shift, but he still insisted that we were wrong. So it turns out we weren't wrong. He didn't want to believe it, even when you showed it.
The most important stat on the InStat shift is shift lengths.
Yep.
And it monitors shift lengths. And one of the problems is making sure there's a contrast in color of your jersey number to your jersey, because I know one of our teams had to change all their numbers, putting white numbers on instead of black numbers on the jerseys, because the jerseys weren't very dark, were too dark. But the one of my coaches, Jordan, who's on this session a lot, he's taken that shift length and he has the volleyball flip chart. You know how they score keep in volleyball on the bench?
Yeah.
And when the defense come off, the first one comes off the ice from a pairing. they flip the chart. And when the forward comes off after a shift, they flip the chart. And you should have 30 flip charts in each period for 45-second shifts. And he's been able to accomplish that, the pace of their play, and that statistic, and them checking their own statistics. But he's been able to connect the conscious awareness, like you mentioned, Peter, using that volleyball thing. While they come off the ice, the first person flips it. And he's had to catch him a couple of times for flipping it twice. But it's just the idea that coaches, they want to learn and get better, and even parents do, and players do too. They really do. It's just a matter of doing it in a way that motivates and not, impinges their progress and hinders their progress. But I'm really into this big time, the habit thing, because of the book. I'm talking sticks on the ice and turning your back on the play. And Kim, you've mentioned how, simple that is. And we're talking to one another. Yeah, it's simple because you're aware of it. You look at the play and you see when their sticks are off the ice. Well, average coaches don't.
Right.
They're so busy looking at the game. They're not looking at the player that turns their back on the ice. It takes years of experience to see things happen as they happen, to address them or not address them. The art of coaching is not to address them directly, but maybe indirectly, about what can we do better. So, Peter, go ahead. Your hand's up.
Yeah, just what you just said there about the awareness piece and the teaching part of that too. One thing I always found interesting too is, especially when you're coaching, Division II level, your assistant coaches are typically younger guys who played the sport. And I had this with one of my defensive coaches. He was running the D for us, and I would always ask him, maybe after a play or after a period or after a rush, tell me what your defenders were doing. Tell me what your D-men were doing. And he'd kind of look at me. Well, they came up with the play. I know, but tell me what they were doing. And then I have conversations with them. To your point, you can't be a spectator. If you're on the bench as the assistant coach, you can't be a spectator. You have to watch and see what are your defenders doing as that play is going on. So once they get off the ice, we can talk about if it was good, bad, or indifferent, what exactly happened. So mentoring those assistant coaches, I think, is important too, so that they're not just, again, spectating from the bench, just like parents are spectating from the stands.
Kim.
I think it's also, language is so powerful, and especially when it comes to habits, there's certain things that, if it's a non-negotiable or something that you really prioritize as a coach, then you should have a language about it that your players understand, if that sticks on the ice or sticks down or whatever that is. And so it can be constantly communicated to them more easily by everyone. I know for us at U9, we don't have center, left wing, or right wing. We went to full ice about a month ago. We don't even have Ds. We have kind of these other terms, but we have concepts like, Wally, I stole the train tracks idea last year, which has been transformational. We talk about having a player in the fast lane. We talk about having a hinge, a hunter, a backpack. These are all terms that we use. And so you can, to your point, Peter, say to an assistant coach, hey, we didn't have anybody in the train tracks that time in front of our net, or we need to get someone in the fast lane. And it's amazing because the players can then self-correct as well when you have this shared vocabulary that's consistent with everybody. So, we're not talking about on the breakout getting your butt on the boards and your stick in the middle. We're saying we need somebody in the fast lane. You might not get the puck, but we need someone out there. That's what we call the lane out by the boards on both sides. And so I think those are really kind of powerful ways to have those shared words, and then you can be really consistent and everybody can use the same terminology, and then we're explaining things the same way, and then that sinks in even greater with the players. And I use that same terminology, quite frankly, when I coach the national team with Iceland. Like, we still talk about having a backpack player, we talk about having hunters, we talk about hinge and train tracks. It's the same. And so I can imagine if I was actually coaching all the levels in between, within one organization, which I guess I do in Leaside. I mean, those terms can be really, really valuable, and they can sustain over time. And then the conceptual side of hockey is ingrained in everybody, irrespective of what systems a coach chooses or what skills a skills coach does. I would say that's been the biggest thing for me, is having those terms and seeing these 7 and 8-year-old kids be able to, not just share them with me, but go to their parents and say, oh, like, what were you doing there? Oh, well, I have to be in the train tracks and Sally was in the fast lane. And it sounds like we're speaking some kind of hidden language compared to the other teams, but it really resonates versus I'm the left winger and I need to do this. And I don't know, it really has caught on well with the younger players to have those terms. And it was neat to see, to be able to use those same terms on the national team level and have them embrace it as well.
Thanks very much, Kim, for that. That's outstanding. You articulated pretty well, kid.
I've only had 7 concussions, Wally, so there's still some. The funny thing is, though, talking about these habits, I do have to say, watching my kids stand there, I had my 2 hands on my stick and my stick up by my waist an awful lot when I played, and I turned out okay. So it's funny because I coach like that. I'm always holding my stick up high. So I go, okay, my daughter's been on the ice with me quite a few hours. So a lot of her isms on the ice are actually very similar to what I do. So I'm pointing the finger at my